Hello and welcome to this very festive edition of the King Street Cinema podcast. My name's Andy and I'm joined as ever by James, King Street's very own. How are you, James?
I'm doing well. Yeah.
Are you feeling festive yet?
Getting there. It's still early, you know. We've still got 6 weeks.
Yeah, so, we're recording this at the end of November.
Yeah.
This isn't like an actual movie where we'll be filming it in maybe August or March. But we're going to talk about a couple of the Christmas movies coming up at King Street this year, as well as a few other things as well that will come on in December. But we're going to start with a classic, really. It's become, would you say classic or cult classic? Santa Claus the movie.
Yeah. I don't know if it's either. I mean, maybe a cult, I guess, more than a classic in general, because it didn't do well when it first came out.
It didn't. But I have read that it done well in the UK.
Did it?
And that might be why it feels like a classic to me.
Maybe. I mean, I remember it being about a lot as a kid. It wasn't like it was invisible. It was certainly a movie that you went, oh yeah, there it is, you know.
It got the runs on TV a lot.
Indeed.
It did. But I'm told by my parents that I saw it in the cinema.
Right. I definitely didn't.
But it came out in 1985, did it?
That sounds right, yeah. And it came out at Christmas time, so it's a proper Christmas movie.
Yeah. But I'd have been 4 then.
Yeah.
So I might have just about been old.
I mean, I was going to cinema at 4.
Yeah, I suppose.
But I don't think I saw it at the cinema.
Yeah, I mean, if I did, that would make it the first film I saw in the cinema, which I always think is Masters of the Universe, which came out 3 years after that. So I probably saw
87. Sorry.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. But sorry, I probably saw a few films before that.
Yeah, it's very possible. You know, memory's a funny thing. It's hard to pin it down.
But anyway, it's not about me. But this was a fairly big budget movie.
Indeed.
The guys behind the Superman franchise.
Absolutely. Yeah. The producers,
Producers and screenwriters as well.
Was it really? I'm not quite sure.
I'm not sure. I think.
I'm sorry. I don't really know the ins and outs.
I think there was a lot of writers on Superman, so I think it was some of them.
Oh, okay. That might be right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the director of Supergirl.
Yes.
Who done a lot of movies, including Jaws 2.
Indeed. Yeah.
So it's
someone from Jaws 2, or at least one person I know for certain, is in this film. As well.
Who'd be that?
You see, I should have written some of this stuff down. we come in kind of without notes. But if anyone has seen Jaws 2 and Jaws 1, he's also in the first one as well. The deputy sheriff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He is sort of the assistant to the bad guy in this film.
Yeah, who is the excellent John Lithgow.
Yeah.
Who
can't forget his name.
No, he's also quoted in saying that in the UK he's probably most well known for this film.
Amazing.
Than anything. Which maybe in the 80s it would be, but I think since.
Yeah, surely. Third Rock from the Sun for certain. I mean, that was a huge hit over here. It ran for 10 years, didn't it? Something like that.
It did, yeah. And that was on all over the world, but that was quite big over here as well.
It was, yeah.
For years, what I always thought of when I saw him, what movie?
Couldn't say, no.
Harry and the Hensons.
Yeah, I was going to, and that was one that I was going to mention about maybe people knew him from that, because I think that was fairly popular over here as well.
Yeah, I think so, and especially younger people.
Yeah.
Because he'd done stuff like Raising Cain and things like that.
Yeah,
as well.
a lot of thrillers.
Yeah.
He generally plays bad guys for the most part, which he didn't in Harry and the Hendersons.
No.
Or Third Rock
from
the Sun.
I think he's really good at both.
Yeah, I think so. I think he is better at the bad guy, I think, because he's very good at doing crazy cartoonish voices and sort of faces and stuff.
But one performance in recent years I think stands out is Rise of the Planet of the Apes. For a big budget film, he plays the dad with Alzheimer's.
That's right. I'd forgotten all about that.
Yeah. And I think that added more to that movie than just the standard ape-based actioner. But anyway, back to
so Santa Claus the movie.
Yeah, I mean it's got a lot going for it when you think about it. I know it's off the back of Supergirl flopping and some of the I think the same screamer. He did do Superman, but he also done Sheena as well, which really bombed.
Right.
But people don't, this has got the big feel, the big. It's a strange one because when you think of movies with Santa Claus in, it's things like Miracle on 34th Street, sort of more emotional, almost what seemed smaller films, because this was a big scale.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing, because when I think of those movies, the older, I mean, obviously they're much older films, like Miracle on 34th Street. So I know there was remake in the 90s, but
I was talking about
you think of the older ones. I don't know. I mean, you think of them as smaller probably because they're older, but I don't really think that they're necessarily like. Well, I think when people think of them, I'm sure they think of them as being quite grand films. You know?
Yeah, I suppose, but I mean more sort of smaller scale. But you know,
no, I understand what you mean. But I mean, when I think of this film, Santa Claus movie, I can see that it's a big budget movie. You can visually see that, but to me, it's never. I think because it's a British film, and it is very much a British film. Like it's got Britain in the 80s written all over it, pretending to be America. Which so many films, were like that. Especially the Supergirl, especially being filmed in Britain. It's got that feel of just very homegrown. If you're British, she feels really much smaller than maybe it would to someone who's not from Britain. But it's got moments where you go, wow, there's money spent on this.
Yeah, and one of the things what got praised was the Santa's workshop scenes, which
all of that stuff, and especially early on in the film. That's where a lot of the money is spent. You can see it. It's visually, it's there. Later on, where we get sort of scenes that are supposedly meant to be New York, but they're clearly not. It's just where you go, this is your typical kind of British movie pretending to be something else.
Because the bulk of it was filmed at Pinewood.
Pinewood Studios.
Which is where they done obviously the Bond films and Superman. And they done which you showed a few months ago, 1989's Batman was done as well.
And you got to remember that, like in the 80s, if people don't remember the 80s, it was a very different time. Like filmmaking in Britain, even then, it doesn't seem necessarily that long ago. It was very different to what it is now. And a massive film like this, budget-wise, which I'm saying is probably got to be 25 to 30 mil, something like that, which for the time was a fairly big deal. Was unusual. Not many movies in Britain, British movies, made that kind of budget. So. Yeah, it was a big deal, but again, it's an American. It's made in Britain, but it's an American movie. So,
the budget it says it's between 30 and 50 million, which is a
big.
It's usually you don't get that big at what it could be.
I'd say I would have thought maybe I don't know. See, I have no real idea because I'm thinking I would think 30 million would make sense. In the production, maybe there was a lot spent on marketing and stuff. So I'm pretty sure there was. I don't think 20 mil was worth, perhaps, but
could have been. Now, one thing I remember about this, what stuck in my mind is as I got older and got more into comedy, Dudley Moore. Now, this would have definitely been the first thing I saw him in, and he was kind of on a roll in Hollywood at the time, wasn't he? And I think he was the big draw. I mean, he's got top billing.
Yeah, he's certainly. He's not probably he's probably the most famous person in the film of the moment that it was made. But you have like Burgess Meredith in it, who really doesn't need to be in it, but is in it. I don't quite know how they got him, but he's a much bigger star. As far as acting, in movies goes.
He could have literally been. He might have been over doing something else.
Maybe.
And then they just got him because this is what I was reading up on. I don't remember him being in it. It's been a while since I've seen it, and this is another one where I want to talk about it because I do want to go and see it on the big screen. I have definitely not seen it in the cinema since when I first saw it, which is nearly 40 years ago. And I've only seen it a few times on TV since. But I was reading that he's on screen for about a minute and says 8 lines.
Yeah, it's probably right. So that sounds about right. It's definitely only one scene.
Yeah,
and I remember it correctly. It did feel really like that there is no point.
Is he like an ancient elf or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, he's like, and it's not mentioned what he is. Yeah. And it's a kind of nice element to that as well, that you just have to assume something of it, that you're not told who he is. I quite like that about it. There's a lot of stuff like that in the movie, which I find quite charming. Where I feel like, there was more here. They had more. like to do, but they probably couldn't afford it. They ran out of time
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So I quite like that about the film because it's I like the film. So first I'm going to say that before I start saying any negative things about it. I like the film very much, but there are a lot of things in it that you go, oh, that's not so great. As a filmmaking, from a filmmaking standpoint, technical standpoint, you go, oh dear, it's a bit ropey, a bit choppy. You feel like it's rushed a bit in places.
Yeah. Which I mean, to get a movie out for Christmas, it may have been. So that's one thing with these kind of movies. But I remember it just being, obviously the title, but as Christmassy as Christmas movies go. It's not one you'll stick on in July.
No, this is certainly a Christmas film.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that.
It's about saving an elf, isn't it? A lot of it.
It's kind of.
It's like the origin story of.
Well, there's that. It's like there's two things going on in the film. So the first half is the origin story of how Santa Claus becomes Santa Claus, which is kind of cool. It runs a bit long, but it's still cool. Visually, it looks really cool and stuff. And the characters are all nice. There's no horrible characters in this. There's a couple of kids that are a little annoying, but they're not in it that much, so it's okay.
Yeah.
So there's no really annoying characters in it. I mean, if you don't like John Lithgow being really John Lithgow-y, then you might find that a bit annoying. But who's like that? Yeah, exactly. So I mean, he is the most outrageously over the top John Lithgow ever has been, I think.
Yeah,
is in this film. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good though.
Him being just so much shouting.
Yeah, but when you think about it, it's the film, the way it plays is much like the first Superman. It's him coming to the Earth, the origin, and then the second half really is save something plot.
Yeah, it's an episode.
Yeah,
it's got here's one of the stories,
The Adventures of Santa Claus.
Basically. Yeah, and that's kind of nice. But I find the film very charming and quite sweet, and I love the idea more than necessarily the final product.
But I mean, being a U certificate.
Absolutely.
Now, any faults in it that you said technical side, a kid isn't going to care.
Exactly. I mean,
and that's what's great about it.
From the point of view of a child, which obviously this film is made for, it's made for kids. Not going to care at all about how it. Just as long as visually it looks good, which it does.
Yeah. And
the story is a little. Typical me. You could trim it 10, 15 minutes, in length.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's kids not going to get bored of it or what's this?
And there's not. I can't think of the last. I might be wrong, but cinematic movie with say Santa Claus in.
It doesn't really happen that often, does it?
I mean, there's been a few sort of like Fred Claus and things like that, but they're not really just for kids, I
suppose what we're saying, Tim Allen always comes to mind doing the Santa Claus in the 90s.
Yeah, that's a while ago now, isn't it?
That's like late 90s, isn't it? Yeah. And that's kind of got a similar-ish kind of thing.
I suppose Will Ferrell is,
Elf.
That's 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
And this is one that when we were younger was on TV a lot.
Oh yeah.
It might still be, but I think younger kids don't really watch TV as it is, so there's a big audience for this out there, and especially if you're a parent and you're wanting to take your kids to see a Christmas film. I think that this year, what I've seen coming out, the big film for Christmas is the Disney one, which isn't really a Christmas film.
It's called Wish.
So I mean, if you want to take your kids to see something Christmassy. This is the one they probably haven't seen, unless you've shown them the DVD or something.
I mean, this is as Christmassy a movie should ever really get.
Yeah.
And at the same time, without all of the Jesus-y bits in it.
Yeah.
It's got none of that, which is great.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be preached at. And I don't think it's a very preachy film. It does have a little thing in there of it, and there are two things that make me laugh. When really they should make me a bit angry, which is sort of like product placement in it.
Oh, really? Okay.
They're so blatant, it's just ridiculous.
Okay.
But otherwise, it does make me think of Mac and me. But otherwise, it's a nice movie. And everyone's good in it. It's fun. it's non-offensive, really.
Yeah.
You know.
And also it's got that 80s charm as well,
Exactly.
which I do.
Yeah.
I know 80s was the big, corporate,
That's it. Well, that's the story element in the second half is corporations, consumerism, and stuff like that. You know who the bad guy is.
Yeah.
You know.
But that's good because it's getting at that part of the 80s. But there is some charm about just the whole look of it, the music.
Oh yeah.
Should we briefly mention how it could have gone with the director they were going to go for or wanted to go for?
Yeah, but understandable because he had a big hit with Starman in the previous.
Was that
year.
a big hit? It was. I know.
I don't think it was. I think critically it was a big hit.
I mean, I love Starman. Don't get me wrong.
I don't know about box office or anything like that, but I'm sure it did fairly well, if not very well. But critically, it was massive.
Yeah, and that's John Carpenter.
John Carpenter, yeah. Absolutely.
Which,
generally known for making horror films, but really his career's been many different types genre of films.
Yeah, I mean, his third movie was whatever was straight after Halloween was the Elvis.
Yeah,
one.
TV film.
Yeah, but still a movie.
Absolutely.
So straight away, I think that was for his career a wise thing to do because he was getting really known for. We'd done Dark Star, didn't he?
Yeah, it was Dark. So you got Dark Star,
Halloween.
Assault Precinct 13, which is an exploitation sort of
so really, Halloween was his first horror. So
and then obviously you get known for that because it's a huge hit and whatever. Yeah. And he's made other horror films since then, many in fact, some great ones like The Thing and Prince of Darkness, stuff like that. But yeah, he's a guy who made many different films. I mean, Starman is very much a family movie.
Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah. But I think he'd have done a very good job. Yeah. But it would have been a very different film.
I think so. Yeah.
Almost I think it'd be more serious.
Yeah.
And definitely he'd have done the score, which would have been different.
Without question. Well, he said that if he was going to do it, he'd have to be on the writing team and did the score.
We should get a campaign to get him to do a Christmas movie. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be.
If only Roddy Piper was still with us and he could have played Santa Claus.
Yeah, they live.
But it would definitely be Kurt Russell now, who has played Santa Claus since.
They Live is probably the closest that he got to the Santa Claus. I think it's.
But yeah, I mean, we're going to play the trailer for this now. Give it a listen, and I definitely recommend.
Yeah,
I'm going to
absolutely.
Here's that trailer.
Curious kind of place. Oh, this is nothing. You'll see. Green's just not his colour. Now that's perfect. You will bring our gifts to all the children in all the world. Santa doesn't like my toys. We've never had returns. Appreciate me. Let me use your toy factory to make something special. These toys by December, Santa Claus will be finished. Our friends are in trouble. They're counting on us. Wow! Got to fly like the wind. Santa, they're waiting. Can I hear something first?
We're going to take you away from the festive theme just for a bit and chat about Godzilla.
Yeah.
As King Street will be showing the new Godzilla movie, Godzilla -1, this December. We'll play the trailer for that. Then we're just going to chat about Godzilla for a bit because Godzilla's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's nearly 70 years since the first Godzilla movie was made.
Amazing.
1954.
Yeah.
And that is a classic.
It truly is a classic. It's a great film.
Yeah. Have you got anything to say? I know you're a big fan.
I don't know really what to say. If you haven't seen it, you should have. It's a true melodramatic piece of Japanese cinema of the time, very much of the time, of course, in the 50s, but very much on the nose of this is a movie about what we have suffered here in Japan in the last 10 years. Because you've got to remember, it's not even 10 years since the drop of the 2 atomic bombs on their country in 1945. And that element, that idea, plays all the way through the film, and it very much is an not just anti-war necessarily, but certainly sort of anti-modernization of warfare and things that can harm us.
Yeah.
So scientists working on new technologies in order to create whatever that could, that potentially could be used as a weapon. So, almost like a, fear what may come, in the future sort of film, with a big dinosaur type thing in the background used as a prop ultimately for that. Yeah. But he's not in it so much, I'd say, Godzilla in the original film. But when he is in it, it's terrifying. Yeah. Because he's sort of like he's like a curse. He's like come to tell you lot off for what you've done to the planet.
Ooh, yeah. And of course, if you're not into subtitles, they redone it a few years later. Americans Up, didn't they? Yeah. Was it Perry Mason?
Do you know what? I can't remember. Probably.
And they bring in the character of Steve Martin.
Yes.
Who I think is played by the guy who played Perry Mason.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and they're just sort of like he's there, but they've added scenes in.
Yeah. It's sort of like it was it was made a couple of years, or came out a couple of years after the original film.
Which I think it says a lot for how big the movie was. Yeah. That they wanted it to play to an American audience.
Absolutely.
And I still think you wouldn't do that now, but it's kind of feels better than them to remake it that soon.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it was a hit. Yeah. I know they wanted it to be an even bigger hit in America. Yeah.
And then, to be fair, I don't think they'd done an American remake till the 90s one, did they?
I don't think so. No, I suppose they were probably ideas, but of course, it's the who owns the rights to Godzilla. Yeah. And I'm sure the Japanese people who are involved in creating Godzilla are very much wanting to hold on to that.
It's their thing. It's their baby.
Yeah. So that's probably why more than anything else, because I'm sure there would have been lots of talks and trying to get the rights to Godzilla much earlier than 98, which is the first American film. Yeah.
Which we'll talk about in a bit if we have to.
Yeah.
But then it was followed the next year by Godzilla Rides Again. And then there was a few years after that, 62, King Kong.
Then you have just like just a flurry of them.
This is the thing.
Coming, bam, 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 bam.
There was 1 year later, then there is a 7-year gap, then it's boom, loads of them up till 1975.
Yeah, that's it, that's the one. You got the Mothras and
they bring in the other characters,
Gil Gardens and everything. And
I find it really interesting. The third one's King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, Kong was the other monster.
Yeah, but the fact they've done it that early is pretty cool.
There aren't really. Yeah, I suppose again maybe they're from the Japanese side. They're thinking let's try to market it more to the West. So perfect. Put Godzilla in.
Well, in the original, it wasn't a bloke in a suit, was it?
In the original, I believe it was.
It was. It looks different, doesn't it?
I think maybe there's some bits that aren't. Yeah. But as far as I'm aware, the guy who did Godzilla in the classic era was in the first film as well.
Okay, so there's probably more of the face. Yeah. Because it's sort of
you don't really get a lot of shots of the body, and it's a very dark film in the sense of how it's lit. Yeah. So you don't get a lot of very clear shots of him.
Yeah, which makes it scarier.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very moody. Like I said, the film is very melodramatic in its drama, which is very typical of Japanese films of the time. Which is, a bit kind of funny, I suppose. If you watch it now, you sort of laugh at how over the top some people are being and stuff like that. But really, it's just I find it very heavy going, like emotionally very heavy going. Like there's a lot of care and feeling in the film about, you know, what's not just what's going on, but what the film is really about. You know, it's really there. You can really feel it in the movie. And there were other films made around the time which are a bit more on the nose with it, which are like anti-war films, which again have exactly the same feel, where you just go, you feel, God, man, it's amazing that they're making these films after what they've been through. You know, you just go, fucking, how are they doing it? Yeah, it's crazy.
It's how they did deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, as well as I don't know if I saw the original one when I was a kid. But I grew up watching them. Channel 4 would show them late night. I'd record them, and they were the fun late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, very camp.
Clearly, guys in rubber suits fighting. It was like wrestling. But how it evolved is quite interesting, because the films, they kept making them. They were clearly slightly getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. But they ran for so long, and it never really went away.
No.
There was breaks. I mean, there's been sort of 3 eras of the Japanese ones. And I do want to mention the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, which is what a lot of people of our age, and probably a bit older, people 40s, 50s maybe, saw that with Godzuki in it, who was never in the films. He did have a son, but it wasn't Godzuki. Right. Very cheesy, fun cartoon.
I never saw it.
You never saw it?
I don't. It does not ring a bell. I mean, I think the knowledge that there was a Godzilla cartoon certainly, but comes to mind, but I don't remember ever seeing it.
Okay, I'm going to show you the beginning credits to it after this, and
cool.
I'll watch your reaction.
I would just I want to mention that, like, the original film to me is a classic, absolute classic of Japanese cinema, and it's a very important film, and it's one of, definitely, I would say, even one of my favourite films of Japan's Japanese cinema. And I do. That aside, I want to make sure that even though I may say things like they're very, the later films are very camp and stuff like that, I do very much enjoy them.
Oh, they're different. That's the thing.
Yeah, they're a very different thing, and I'm not a sort of snobby person that would go, "Oh, no, they're just silly films." And I do think there's still stuff in there that's really good, just still really good. Considering how cheap they are, they're very cheap films. You can see that, and they put a lot of work in, a lot of effort into.
Well, if it wasn't for them, films like that, you wouldn't have got Power Rangers in the 90s and things like that. But also, the first one, you couldn't make a franchise out of movies like that.
No.
It's done extremely well. What else can you do? Mm-hmm. So people liked the character, and it just became almost like developed into this thing itself. And it's fine, and you can't. There might be fans out there who only like the first one, and they think the rest of it's ruined it. Who knows?
Probably, yeah.
But nowadays, that would definitely happen. But what it's become is, huge, like Godzilla should be.
Yeah.
There's so much out there.
Yes. I think, many. I mean, the Japanese films, I'm pretty sure there's probably over 30 of them.
Yeah, there is loads, and
not more.
And in more recent years, there's the new one, -1, which was why we're talking about Godzilla. A few years ago, there was the Shin Godzilla, which, if you haven't seen, is so good. It came out around the same time as the latest American one.
Yeah, that's right. Was it was that 2014? Something like that?
Yeah, it was. 2014 was the American Gareth Edwards one,
that's the
and Shin Godzilla was 2016. So a few years after.
Yeah, it took a couple of years.
Around the same time.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
And then in Japan there was a few animated movies in between that. And then this new one, which obviously I've not seen yet because it's not out yet.
We haven't. I mean, obviously it's not out here in the UK, but it has been out in Japan and I think other territories, and it's done extraordinarily well.
And the reviews have been fantastic.
I think most people are saying this outdoes the original as far as filmmaking goes. On a technical level, it's as good or even better. And I think the money, it's made more as well.
Yeah,
I think, obviously adjusted for inflation and all that, obviously. But I think, it has done. It's been more successful, I think, at least in its own country.
I think how that, it's like Shin Godzilla came out and wasn't huge, but critically done well, and the fans liked it. Yeah. And they've built on that for this one.
And the trailer looks great.
Yeah, it does.
It just looks like it's going to be a really good film.
Yeah. Are you... a fan of the newer American ones at all?
I'd like them. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan, but I do like them. I appreciate them. I'm glad they've made them.
Yeah.
You know.
I think the first one, the Gareth Edwards one,
Yeah,
was so much better than I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole, the build up to see Godzilla, and it's got a great cast. And,
yeah. That one is definitely the best, and you could see on the back of that why they would continue to make. I mean, they would have probably tried anyway, but it did extraordinarily well, and it was a really good film. So it makes sense that they would, and want to make more movies.
Yeah, and the sequels are pretty cool.
They're fine, aren't they? I mean,
they're kind of action.
Yeah, big spectacle type movies. They make me feel like similar to sort of the modern sort of superhero movies. How I feel about them, they're very much just rides. More than
you enjoy them while you watch them and forget. Yeah. And I think there's a TV series as well on some Sky Channel. Yeah. But we will briefly mention, as we're doing sort of the history, because there's so many 60s and 70s ones. It's hard. I was going to see the number, but I don't know which are animated and which are not. But Shin Godzilla would have been the 29th.
Right.
But some of the titles, like Godzilla versus Space Godzilla in '94, because there was this ridiculous 80s, 90s over the top.
Right.
But the real classic era is the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, I mean, those are the ones that I have seen of the sort of the older Japanese ones. Yeah. Been from the 60s, other than obviously the original one. But yeah, so what was it? Destroy All Monsters, I remember that one. That
was my favourite as a kid.
Right.
You had all the monsters going to different countries, and there was like the stereotypical British news presenter.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
That was great. 1968, that one.
I've seen Invasion of Astro Monster as well.
That's one of my favourite titles for a film ever.
that one's good fun. I think it's interesting when I think of how little Godzilla is on screen in some of these films as well, because they do like to build him.
Yeah.
It's all very much a lot of it's about building up this, getting the suspense for when he's going to come.
Yeah.
So you've got to really be into sort of old-fashioned, campy 60s style storytelling to appreciate it, I suppose. I think kids watching it today would probably not like them too much. No. I don't think.
They might like if they fast forward to
exactly. Get to Godzilla sort of thing, because there's a lot of time when he's not on screen.
Yeah. So. But then when he does, he'll do like a kung fu kick or something.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hilarious because and just the shots of establishing shots that you should be a place, but they're just models. Yeah. Everything that's grand, that's big, is model.
Yeah. But I haven't seen many of the 80s or any. I don't know. I must have done. But the fans really like them. I think they're proper over the top.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Yeah.
But also they were low budget and probably had their cult following, but weren't huge hits. Whereas this new one is a big cinematic event.
It is, yeah.
Just the fact that it's even got a cinema release here, it says a lot for it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure that it's been the same studio every film, I think, or at least the live action ones. I'm sure it's Toho for all the films, which is cool. That it stayed in one place, even if it's. I mean, because this movie is this one coming out, it's quite a big budget by the looks of things.
Yeah.
Where, like I say, like most of the others weren't, or if all of the others.
I mean, that's why with the others, when they weren't big budget, going the campy route works for it.
Yeah.
Because you're not taking it overly seriously.
Yeah. It's meant to be fun. It's completely supposed to be just fun sort of. You'd think Batman in the '60s kind of thing. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah, which is cool.
It is very cool. Yeah.
So in 1998, did you go and see?
Did.
What were your thoughts at the time and now?
At the time, okay, I remember thinking, this isn't great, but it's okay. We saw it at the cinema and was like, fine. You go and you go, right. It's big, it's loud. It's not great story, but whatever. It's fine. There's been a lot of rubbish. Got to remember, so this is 98. Coming up to this movie, there'd been a lot of rubbish at the cinema, like a lot of rubbish. So you're quite desensitised by this point that there being a lot of rubbish blockbusters.
Well, like the Avengers and stuff.
And
in the 90s Avengers.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Lost in
Batman and Robin and stuff like that have come out. Spawn's come out. I mean, there's been a lot of rubbish at the cinema, blockbuster rubbish. So this one probably didn't feel as bad at the time, but it's not good. Is it?
Well, I remember seeing it. It would have been the old Odeon.
Yeah.
We went with some friends. We'd have been 16,
Yeah.
maybe 17.
Yeah.
We came out and I was like, "That's okay." But to me, even then, it wasn't Godzilla. My
No,
friends hadn't
absolutely.
grown up with
Yeah.
Godzilla.
Yeah.
And one of my mates, I went for it, it's all right. And one of my mates, "It's one of the best films I've ever seen." I told him to shut up. I was like, but it was it's the makers of Independence Day,
Yes, and it feels like that.
and it's so cashing in still on Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And the whole, when he got to the city, it just wasn't big enough. That's not Godzilla.
Yeah.
That was my, some of it I liked, what's the guy who played Leon?
Yeah. So Jean Reno.
Yeah, I mean, he was funny in it, he was good.
Yeah. Yeah, I've only seen it once since I saw it at the cinema, and
Yeah.
that was easily 15 years
Yeah.
ago. So it's been a really long time since
Yeah, I
I've
think I
seen
watched it. I might have rewatched it in 2014 when the
Right.
New York.
Oh yeah, maybe. No, I don't think I did. I think I thought about it and then thought, no, actually, maybe not.
But I mean, it's. I think as people watch films, blockbusters go, it's fine.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, probably a few years younger than me, who really like it.
Right.
And I do get that because they've not grown up with Godzilla.
Sure, but it's still not that great of a film. I mean, I don't think it's.
Yeah,
just-
imagine watching it though when you were if you was 8. And
Yeah,
you'd
of
not
course,
seen,
of course. It's
yeah.
it's it's one of them. Like you say, it's made by the guys who did Independence Day, and it has that feel. It's very much disaster movie.
Yeah.
With Godzilla instead of something else.
Yeah.
Being the disaster. But it's that feel.
Yeah.
So
But also, it felt it was so setting up for a franchise. It doesn't finish with
probably with like.
Godzilla left some eggs or something.
Yeah, which is like what are we thinking, like Jurassic Park or Critters or something.
Yeah. Oh, Critters, that is a movie. But yeah, and then there was an animated series of it around that time as well, which was meant to be really good. A lot of people prefer that to the film. But that sort of was a push for Godzilla again, and then because it didn't do so well, then there was that bit of a break outside of Japan.
Yeah.
But I just think it's amazing how this is. The closest thing I can think to for something remaining this popular for that long is Batman.
Yeah.
But then even Batman kind of built, didn't it? Whereas Godzilla's always been.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, when I think of monsters, though, like kaiju, as they're called in Japan, it just doesn't seem to me like it's something that could fail.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have to be. It doesn't like you watch the movies, the majority of the films, which are very campy and silly. You just see like, how can this not work? Like, how can people not be enough people anyway be into this for there to be a long run of these films, and just I suppose the idea of Godzilla, the concept of a creature that's prehistoric, sort of Jurassic era type creature, like a dinosaur but more incredible.
Because he's huge, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's got powers. He's always had powers since the first film, right?
Yeah.
It's not something that came along later or anything. It's always been the case. He's a sort of he's got sort of supernatural abilities and stuff, and yet being this huge, ridiculously crazy-sized monster that you just stand and you just scream at.
Yeah.
So if he's not on your side.
Well, that's the thing. Is like if I was to look out my window and see Godzilla coming towards me, I reckon I'd probably just have a heart attack.
Yeah, exactly.
That should be in the film. Just everyone just dies.
But you see, in the first film, there is a bit where I think it might be the first proper reveal of him. A big group of people seeing him for the first time. I think they're on a boat as well. I think, if I remember correctly, and there is a guy who does the classic thing, which you think would be in more of the campy films, where he goes Godzilla and then sort of runs, sort of like points and then
because that bit is brought back in the 1988 one. I'm sure that happens.
I'm sure it happens. Loads, and it's been parodied all over the place. But it was even in the original film, which is a serious film, where they were going, "What this is? You're going to behave hysterically or just drop down dead." Yeah. If you saw such a thing.
Yeah. I think I'd do the latter. I generally do. I'll try to befriend him. But yeah, so I'm excited for this.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to get it at the cinema. It's one of those.
Absolutely.
I don't
think there's many places other than us that are showing it?
I don't know. I know Cinema in Colchester is,
Right.
But I don't know about anywhere else. So, but you've got it on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And it's going to be cool.
Yeah, it's just the one showing, as far as I'm aware. It might come back if that showing does well.
Yeah.
So please
get yourself. Is it December 23rd?
Is it 23rd? Is it?
I don't know.
Oh dear, because I'm thinking 22nd, just off the top of my head. But it's either 22nd or 23rd.
It's a Friday night. It's a Friday.
What's a Friday? What's a Friday?
It is the 23rd because Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Christmas.
You got it.
Yeah. So. What you want to do is get to the King Street Cinema website.
That's what you want to
look at, where everything is on there. What is showing, and we've both quickly got our phones out now because we don't.
Yeah, just making sure. Oh no, I've got 22nd.
Oh right,
Friday.
Okay.
Friday is 22nd.
Oh, I do apologise.
Yeah.
I was once again very wrong.
No, that's fine.
So,
but yes, indeed, go to the website, check out what's happening throughout the whole of the Christmas period, and coming.
The same afternoon, you've got Santa Claus the movie, so you could do.
That's a double bill.
Yes,
I mean that's a double bill right there. Santa Claus the movie and Godzilla -1. I mean, come on.
What else do you want?
What a day out.
Yeah. So right, we're going to chat about another Christmas film in a minute. But we recorded this so early, I don't know if there'll be someone else with me chatting about this Christmas film, or we'll get James back. Who knows? James is shrugging like, oh.
I'll do it.
Yeah. So we're going to play you this trailer, and then be back very soon.
It's the night before Christmas, when all through the home, one boy will discover he'd been left all alone. I made my family disappear. For more. Home Alone. Sure, the greatest holiday family film ever.
Okay, I'm here with Antonia Howard, who you may know from the local Ipswich music scene. She's guested with me on my other podcast, ACM's Vault of Cult. You've done loads of things over here, including ICR, haven't you?
Yeah, so much that we've both lost track, I think.
Yes. But thank you for joining us in this very festive edition of the King Street Cinema podcast. You are a user of King Street, aren't you?
I am indeed.
Yeah. I've actually been there with you on several occasions, and a big supporter of cinema in general, so thank you very much. Festive movies, or Christmas movies, however you want to phrase it. This is one of your favourites, yeah? Home Alone?
Yeah, it depends what sort of metric of favourite you mean. It is one that I watch every single Christmas, on my own usually, because no one else will watch it with me as many times as I want to watch it, so you could probably call it a favourite.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time you saw it?
I don't, actually. I think I was around the same age as Kevin McAllister is in the film, though, if that helps.
Yeah. So would that have been on video? Did you?
It would be on video, yeah.
Yeah. So have you ever seen it in the cinema before?
I have never seen it in the cinema.
So now is the perfect time. Mm-hmm. Excellent. So I'll be bullying you into going to see that. But I don't think you'd take much bullying.
No, I think I've talked myself into it already.
Just reasons you like the movie, really, and thoughts on it.
So, having seen it first as a child and now again as an adult, my perspective has really changed and shifted over the years, as you might expect. I think it's not really much of a stretch to interpret Home Alone as an allegory for class wars. So, how different would the film be without the wealth of the family? You know, would it be if there were a different demographic? Would it be a very different film? I suspect so. You know, there's lots of examples of the McAllisters' wealth. So it starts with the family getting ready to leave their mansion to visit their relatives who live in a beautiful apartment in Paris. They're all flying. Parents are flying first class to Paris at Christmas time. Their house is fully decorated, despite the fact they're not going to be there. When they get to Paris airport and they realise that Kevin is not with them, Mrs. McAllister suggests hiring a private plane to fly them from Paris, and this is not met with horror by her husband. The only reason it doesn't happen is the customer service desk says they don't do it. So yeah, it's really interesting looking at how characters are treated, and the class demographics are really sort of defined in this film. So Working class characters are treated really poorly. The pizza boy, at the beginning of the film, he arrives with his pizzas. He's left standing in the hall for absolutely ages. And the family have pretty much finished eating by the time he eventually gets paid. Like, bearing in mind pizza delivery, I think it's common practice that if you're late delivering a pizza, you don't get paid. So this boy's potentially losing a lot of money, for the rest of his shift. Later on, the same pizza boy returns and is terrified for his life by Kevin, who's playing the clips from the video with the shooting. There's never any apology, there's never any compunction or guilt for how this kid's treated. Another example, Mrs. McAllister in Scranton. When she arrives in Scranton with her connecting flight from Paris, she verbally abuses the desk clerk. Again, there's no kind of punishment for this. In fact, she's rewarded at Scranton Airport because there's this nice parallel with trains, planes, automobiles. What year did that come out? 'Cause I think that was
87. Same writer director, John Hughes.
Yeah.
Not director, same writer and producer.
Yeah.
This was Chris Columbus. Was it Home Alone?
Yeah, so it's 3 years previous to the release of Home Alone. So trains, planes, automobiles, obviously a massive hit that would be fresh in people's minds. So Mrs. McAllister gets rewarded for verbally abusing his desk clerk, very similar to how Steve Martin abuses the desk clerk in Trains, Planes, Automobiles.
Did you say that seemed a complete throwback to that?
I think it's a throwback, yeah. I think it's throwback, a parallel.
Homage.
An homage, a rip-off. So there we get this nice little Easter egg. We get John Candy.
Yes.
Who appears. Gus Polinski, Polka King of the Midwest. He offers her a ride with his band, which she accepts. It brings the question, though. This kind of raises the possibility that it's drivable from Scranton to Chicago. So why has Mrs. McAllister not driven herself? Why has she not hired a car?
I mean, Kevin's quite annoying. Maybe they don't really want to get back.
Maybe not. Maybe she can't drive. Who knows? But this is America, so I'm sure she probably can. Interestingly, the sergeant in the crisis centre that they phone up in the States, they phone the crisis centre from Paris. He's called Sergeant Balzac. Now, 19th century French novelist Honoré Balzac was known for his novels depicting a very structured and divided class system. He wrote about the vulgarities of a bourgeois society, how wealth is ultimately corrupting, which you can see reflected in the film. He also believed there'd be a class war, with the proletariats on one side, the bourgeoisie on the other. And again, you can see this quite strongly in the themes of the film. Again, sort of a rich white kid, you've got him, Kevin McAllister, he's physically maiming and brutalising two people. And at the end of the film, he gets praise from the police. Would it be the same outcome if he was from a different demographic?
Would they be robbing him?
Would they be robbing him at all?
Yeah.
Would he be worth? Would this whole setup happen? Who knows? Who knows? They need to be wealthy for the premise of the film.
Yeah. Is there any mention of his dad's job?
There is no mention of his dad's job.
His job is being rich.
His job is being rich. He's possibly some kind of diplomat. Who knows? I think the use of the colour in the film is really interesting, though. I think this is kind of a theme of John Hughes films overall. The use of colour is quite strong. Sort of thematically, it's a Christmas film, and it's really hammered home. Like in every scene, there's red, there's red, there's red, there's green as an accent colour, there's red again. You've got a scene where he's accidentally stolen a toothbrush for reasons. He steals a toothbrush, he gets chased by a policeman, he's running through a park. I believe he runs across an ice rink, an outdoor ice rink. Everybody in the park is wearing red or accents of red. They've all got red accessories. In almost every scene, there's red, this really bright primary red. If there's not red, there's green or a combination of the two. Even the supermarket scenes, the groceries, are all kind of very, very red prominent. The only scenes that doesn't appear, the red or the green, are the scenes with Marv and Harry, who wear very, very sort of drab, dour colours. They're very downbeat, those scenes. I don't even think Marv and Harry have surnames that are mentioned at all in the film.
Is it? My opinion, it might be the second one. You see pictures of mugshots with them. It might be written on there.
Yeah.
What do you think of those characters?
What do I think of them? Very, very stereotypical kind of characters. It's almost a Pinky in the Brain kind of setup.
Yeah, that's and very, very two good actors who. I mean, it's the same year Joe Pesci done Goodfellas, wasn't it? Which is amazing, really.
Yeah, it was really his time in cinema, Joe Pesci.
Yeah. I think I like the fact that he can do a Scorsese gangster movie, and probably got. I know he got Oscar attention for that, didn't he? But he probably got as much praise overall for this from fans of movies, and to a lot of people, he's remembered more for this. And he came back for the sequel.
Yeah, good on him.
Yeah.
Now the sequel, I think the sequel actually hammers home even harder these messages of kind of class divides and how Christmas is really made by commercialism, and that's kind of the theme in Christmas films across the board at that time. So Jingle All the Way, we've kind of spoken about before, discussed that before. It really is kind of monetary signification of love and valuing each other. It's all around what you can buy for somebody and how that's almost replacing kind of physically being present.
Yeah.
And you see that quite strongly in Home Alone 2, where Kevin pretty much abuses his dad's credit card.
Yeah.
And gives himself a lovely Christmas.
Yeah.
At the end of the film, he doesn't really show much compassion for a homeless lady. He gives her a Christmas ornament, and she saved his life the night before, and she gets a Christmas tree ornament. So that's all really kind of interesting how that's played out. It's played out as a very touching scene, and probably watching it as a kid, I did find it quite touching. But as an adult, I think maybe she might have appreciated being invited to dinner rather than having a dove ornament, but who knows? Who knows?
You did have to take context. It's over 30 years ago as well, which is it's so strange when you look at a Christmas movie from 30 years ago opposed to a Christmas movie from 70 years ago. How things have really changed with you when you think about the values in It's a Wonderful Life. But it's made for that audience. It's made for the It's not long after the 80s where it was all money, 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 and to be fair, it was made for a white, quite well-off audience, and back then I don't think they thought about that these movies are, if something really should be for everyone. Because I can remember when I first saw Home Alone, I rented it on video, and everyone commented about the size of the house. And I remember people saying it's utter nonsense that cost the same as say our house would have done in this country, and it's like, no, it doesn't. And he's meant to be well off.
Yeah, they're clearly a wealthy family.
It's it's not too far off Macaulay Culkin's film a few years later, Richie Rich, to be honest, is it? But I think they have to be rich to be robbed in the first place.
Yeah. Otherwise, the film doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, and you need the big house so you can set up all the traps, which is the premise of the comedy.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of destruction that happens. It's humorous destruction. It's great.
It's Tom and Jerry, isn't it?
It is basically Tom and Jerry. If you were to sit and almost do a kill count of how many times Marv should die in the film based on his injuries, I think it numbers around 17 times.
Yes.
But he doesn't die because he's a very resilient man, so props to him. He comes back for more later on.
I mean, I think when it did come out, it was criticised a bit for its violence. But it's still a PG, and so I think it should be, because all it takes is a parent to say, look, this is silly, this is cartoony. I mean, would you recommend it for everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I would.
Yes.
Can't think of any reason why not.
Yeah. And I mean, I always talk about sequels. I mean, the second one, I think you probably prefer, don't you?
I don't. I do and I don't. It's more cartoony, it's more violent, it is possibly funnier. There's a lot of callbacks to ridiculous jokes that happened in the first one, but repetition can make things funnier.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of anticipating the joke. Doesn't matter how many times I've seen Home Alone, it still makes me laugh.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
Yeah.
It genuinely cracks me up every time.
Yeah, I mean, it is that. Was it Charlie Chaplin who said that it's always funny to see a policeman kicked up the backside, and it's always funny to see someone fall over. But it isn't funny if you see someone get hurt and they're physically hurt. You see, the pain afterwards, and I think that's why this is such a great kids' film. Kids know it's not real.
They know it's not real. I mean, it's funny to see the pain kind of mount up on Marv and Harry, the way they're walking along, the way they, Marv in particular when he's covered in feathers and tar, and he's got his hat burned off, and
it's Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah.
But also it's funny to see because there's almost the arrogance of them, and even though it's the wealthy family. This would not work if it was an adult in the house. It's a kid doing this, and that's where the humour comes. A lot of the other humour comes from.
Yeah, if it was an adult in the house, it would just be a home invasion movie.
Yeah,
and that it would be a horror film.
Yeah, it would be a lot more violent, and he probably wouldn't use micro machines and marbles and could.
Yeah.
It's about much like the end of the latest Rambo movie. The same sort of thing happens, which I do not recommend. It's rubbish. The sequels. Number 2, I watched the last one. I can't even remember what it was called. What came out a couple of years ago.
Was that a remake or was it a true sequel?
It was a sequel, and the only character in it was his older brother was in it, and it was an offshoot of that family. And I like most films. I can find stuff and I like for most films. The only thing I liked in this was a couple of the performances. Otherwise, I thought it was woeful. There's nothing. I mean, I think they wanted to do another sequel these years later. Maybe Kevin's got a son, something like that.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen parts 3 and 4.
Part 3 is. I'd say it exceeded my expectations. It's a different kid, very similar setup. It's watchable.
Yeah.
It's very silly. That's what you're looking for in that film, so I'd say it fulfills its brief. Part 4 is really strange. So Home Alone 4 is a very odd thing. So it's filmed. It looks like it's filmed on a camcorder for a start.
Right.
It has what is ostensibly the McAllister family. Kevin is somehow younger in Part 4, and he has dark hair. They're living in a normal-sized house. To my recollection, the parents are supposed to have divorced by this point.
Okay.
So they're living with their dad in a small house. The kids are all different. There are only 3 of them. I'm not going to lie, I didn't watch the whole thing. I know, because I couldn't. It didn't feel like a real film. It felt like someone had made a YouTube film and somehow got it on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's very strange. Watching it as a curious, a bit of a curious egg of a film.
Yeah.
I would watch it for that reason, but I wouldn't expect to necessarily enjoy it.
Yeah.
Or think it has much to do with the original films.
Yeah. I mean, I find it really strange how the sequels went, because parts 1 and 2 were massive hits, and I think that by the time the third one come round, it just, if it was or wasn't, it just looked like a rehash with different actors. And maybe they should have retired it and then maybe brought it back later on with a big movie, not a streaming one. But when Home Alone came out, it was the biggest comedy ever made, most successful box office, laugh-a-thon, so to speak. And it's still being shown, which I think is fantastic. Just anything else you wanted to say about it?
No, go and watch it if you haven't seen it. Go and watch it if you've already seen it. Go and watch it, because there's always something new to laugh at and enjoy.
Yeah, take the kids, take the grandparents, the uncles, the aunts, everybody.
Yeah, the whole family, the whole extended family. Yeah. Take a flight from America to Paris, and then the Eurostar to Ipswich.
Yeah.
And then come and watch it at King Street.
And if you're offered a lift by a man in a van, only do it if it's John Candy.
Yeah. And with his polka band. Always accept polka band.
Excellent. Just what I've got here, just to put things into context, another Christmas movie that you're a fan of. Ooh.
I don't know.
It's on the spot.
Is it on the spot? Yeah. I don't know. Obviously, It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
I was forced to watch the Santa Claus movie lots of times as a kid, but I don't remember it much.
But that's been shown at King Street as well.
Yeah.
And I spoke about it earlier in the episode with James, and I watched it at the cinema when I was 4 years old. And visually, I remember it being brilliant. I'm going to go and see it again. It's on the day before Christmas Eve, my day off at 10:30 in the morning. So I'm going to go and see that, and I'll let you know if it stands up. I think it will on the big screen. It's to make us a Superman, for God's sake. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to play a trailer for something next. I don't know what. Another film coming up at King Street in December. And then I'll be back talking to staff member Isabella about
well, the cinema in general, Christmas movies, and her thoughts on films.
This is John. Nice beer. He just wants to spend Christmas with the family.
Is Daddy coming home soon?
We'll see what Santa and Mommy can do. But when he gets stuck at the office party, Merry Christmas! It'll be a holiday. Merry Christmas! He'll never forget. Welcome to the party, pal! This Christmas, the time of miracles, so be of good cheer.
Only John can drive somebody that crazy.
Get ready to jingle some bells and deck the halls with boughs of Bruce Willis,
Santa Claus, get together, have a few laughs.
Alan Rickman,
Do anything to have a chance against our sinister cowboy.
Yippee-ki-yay, together in the greatest Christmas story ever told.
Got some bad news for you, Dwayne.
Hans,
Bobby, eat it, Harvey. I'm starting to get a bad feeling up here. Merry Christmas.
Die Hard,
This is their idea of Christmas. I gotta be here for New Year's.
Okay, so I'm here with Isabella, who's worked at the cinema for nearly 2 years now. First time on the podcast, but I know you've listened before, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Just your thoughts on the cinema and what it's like working there and why you work there, really.
I mean, it's just such a wonderful job. I mean, my background is sort of film and TV. That's kind of what I do on the side as well. So to work somewhere in Ipswich that I've been going to since I was little, it's such a wonderful experience and opportunity. I think it's such a special place. I love going to see films there. I love the people I work with. The audience is just brilliant. I really like sort of connecting with them, and it's great to see sort of new faces, old faces. It's a lovely space.
That's brilliant. Just there's a wide range of movies shown there, and as you say, you're really into film and TV. What some of the films you're looking forward to show, and possibly some of your favourites that's already been shown?
So, I mean, it's such a busy December and January. It's great. I think I'm looking forward to Saltburn. I really hope I get a chance to see it. I think it looks, really interesting. I think probably the film I'm most looking forward to is Godzilla.
Yeah.
I've not actually seen a Godzilla film
really?
in cinema.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So my partner is a massive fan, and basically over the past year or two got me into those. So to see it in the big screen would be really cool.
Yeah.
And the Doctor Who films was really special.
Oh, yeah,
last year. That was just
That was the 60s ones, wasn't it?
yeah, and it was such a special event because it was like a one-off, only that day, and I'm a massive Doctor Who fan, so that was really special. But I mean, so many films, like Everything Everywhere. You've got films like Hunt. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, it's a Korean film. Really, really interesting. So I mean, there's just so many.
Yeah, it's a wide range. And
yeah.
Interesting to say about Godzilla, because we talked about it earlier on in the podcast.
Yeah.
And me and James grew up watching them, but I don't think I've ever seen a Japanese one in the cinema.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try my hardest because there's only one showing.
Yes.
And I think I'm working that night. So if I ring in sick that day, that will be why. I mean, I might catch a cold.
Yes.
So yes.
Yeah.
And Christmas season, not necessarily the ones you're showing, but any favourite Christmas films?
I have to say It's a Wonderful Life, which is
Yeah.
actually quite a funny answer working at King Street, because I don't know if you know, but there was a tradition of showing it every year. Not this year, but I think it's just a really nostalgic film for me and quite special. It's sort of kind of a generational favourite film. So it was my nana's favourite film, and then it was my mum's Christmas film. So I've kind of grown up loving it. And I actually saw it at King Street back in 2017. So I took one of my closest friends to see it, and that was really special to share it with him and to get to see it on the big screen. And then obviously at King Street, kind of made it even more special now that 6 years later I'm working there. So I'd say it's obviously quite a classic and has been on so many times.
Did you watch that when you was right small, or did you discover it when you was? You did.
Yeah. So I think that's part of the reason why it's such a special film. I've grown up with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's more special going back to it as well, and I do think it's a film that everyone should watch at least once. Maybe not every year.
Yeah.
I will, but not everyone has to. But yeah, I think it's just, and I love the Christmas Carol as well. So obviously, it's kind of like the other side of the coin of that.
There's a lot of similarities in the movies, isn't there?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life. I didn't watch till I think I was in my 20s. And I've watched it a fair few times since, and it surprises me that there's still a lot of people out there who haven't seen it.
I know. It's I mean, it is a classic. But
yeah, I think maybe more in America, but it's starting to over here as well.
Definitely.
So, do you reckon you'll be showing that one next year?
I'm not sure. I mean, it literally was on every
year.
single year.
Yeah.
So it is nice that we've got a few different films, like films that I've either never seen before, like Santa Claus the movie and things like that. I'm not I love Christmas, but I think and Christmas time is a time for movies for sure, but I'm actually quite bad with actual Christmas films.
Yeah.
So many of the classics I've either only watched pieces of or here and there. So yeah, maybe I'll actually get a chance to watch some of the big ones.
Because it's Home Alone, Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yes. Oh yeah, I've seen that one plenty of
times. Yeah, that's a great one. Which we've done a podcast on last year, actually.
Yes.
And Santa Claus movie, and you're showing Die Hard, which is we were going to do a bit on the podcast on is it, isn't it? But we thought we'd just leave that to people because I know me and James have quite strong views on it. But I do say I do love that film.
Yeah.
So if people. I think that's become a tradition. I think you showed that last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for people who don't necessarily want the sentimental side of Christmas, that's something well worth showing.
Yeah, for sure. I think, very professionally, I sort of was looking up Christmas films just to check which ones I've seen. I think you'll find this funny. The first film that came up on Google for me was Batman Returns.
Yeah, it's set at Christmas, isn't it?
So I think I do love. I'm very much. I don't think. There are Christmas films that are Christmas films, but I do love a film that you can watch at Christmas.
Yeah.
I think I'm very much in that kind of category of sort of wintry, like, Harry Potter, Lion, Witch and Wardrobe, all the sort of like wintry,
sort of afternoon films, so to speak. Which family films. I mean, years ago there was always Bond films on TV at Christmas. I mean, growing up, my sort of age was Indiana Jones and even Star Wars to a certain
me too, brilliant. Yeah, it was always great because I had the VCR player, and then one time it just sort of died, so I didn't have Star Wars anymore. So it was great to finally actually get to watch it on TV again.
Yeah, because that was the thing. Because when I'm in my 40s now, and Star Wars in the era of video wasn't that easy to get hold of. They'd sort of get smaller releases and then delete them, and it was when it came around at Christmas you get to see them, and they didn't so much really show them at the cinema then. There was always a film out each year, but I think nowadays it's quite nice because the older films are coming back to the cinema more regularly, and even if you've watched them on TV, you get so much more watching them in the cinema.
Definitely, for sure.
Which is kind of why I'm looking forward to Santa Claus the movie, because I saw it when I was about 4, so I don't really remember. I remember going, and I remember it being quite long. Maybe I was a little bit too young for it. And then I've only seen it on TV since, so 38 years later, I'm not that old. I'm looking forward to seeing it on the big screen as an adult. So okay. Thanks a lot for joining us. I mean, if we sort of wrapped up the episode, just introducing you to people. I mean, people who go to the cinema will know who you are. And would you be up for coming back and chatting about a movie?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it's an honour to be on here. No, thank you so much for doing the podcast. It's a wonderful addition.
I enjoy it, and to be honest, me and James chat about films, so sometimes it's just like standing about talking to me mate, but hit record on the button.
Yeah, that's what I love about the cinema and arts and things. It's kind of, you can have fun while working.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's great. Well, thanks a lot, and
so much.
happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays.